Hello and welcome to Science and Technology Current Affairs series of Neo IAS Academy. The topic of the day today is the mRNA vaccine. So we are talking about this mRNA vaccine because the major biotechnology companies, which is Moderna and Pfizer, has actually announced that its vaccines has actually shown effectiveness against COVID-19 for 94.5% and 90% respectively. Now we are talking about this because both these companies, the vaccines of both these companies has actually used the same technology is based on the same technology, which is based on the mRNA system. Now when you are talking about mRNA, it also means messenger RNA. Now understand, this mRNA is responsible to tell the body's cells what kind of proteins it should produce. You know, the body cells are the ones which is producing proteins, but the instruction on what proteins to produce, that is given by mRNA. Now, before we jump into the mRNA vaccines that these companies has produced, we'll give a short, description or an idea about simple vaccines itself and basically understand how these vaccines actually work. Now, to give you an understanding, see, vaccines basically trains the body to recognize and respond to the proteins which are produced by harmful organisms. Now these organisms are basically bacteria or virus. So now talking about the constituents of the vaccine, understand the vaccine actually consists of small doses of the inactivated version of the disease causing organism or the proteins of those disease causing organisms. So in one way or the other, some sort of harmful substances which are weakened in nature are actually present in this vaccine. And this vaccine, when it is added or injected into the human body, what this does is it allows or triggers the immune system of the human body to create antibodies and then go and fight against this newly invading intruder. Now when this happens, what actually happens is the body recognizes the type of intruder which is coming, and then later on when the real disease or the real virus actually comes and attacks the body will already be ready to deal with that virus. Now we'll come and talk about the mRNA vaccine which has been developed by the companies for fighting against COVID-19. Now before we jump into that, as you can see in the figure, you can see the diagram here. It is basically the structure of a coronavirus. It's a very simple basic structure of the coronavirus. You can see on the top there are certain spikes on it, and the middle layer there is a lipid layer, and the RNA or the genetic material of that coronavirus is inside the lipid layer. Okay. Now what we need to understand here is that you see the spikes on top. These spikes are actually the starting point of the virus to infect a human body. It's actually this spikes or this structure which initiates the infection into the human body. How it does that is that it is these spikes which are responsible for the virus to enter the human body, and once it enters the human body, then it starts the process of replication. So it starts to replicate itself and makes multiple copies of itself, and that is how the infection actually causes harm inside the human body. Now coming and talking about the vaccine to fight against this, what is it that the scientist has actually developed a synthetic mRNA or the messenger RNA, and understand this mRNA is actually coded to the proteins of the spike protein of the coronavirus. So whatever the spike protein is there which is responsible for the coronavirus entering into the human body, that spike virus itself, the spike protein itself is coded into the mRNA. And this mRNA, the synthetically developed mRNA, is coated into a lipid layer so that it can be injected into the human body. Now this is the basic vaccine. So once this vaccine is injected into the human body, this mRNA in the vaccine actually tells the cells of the human body to develop multiple or millions of copies of the spike protein itself, not the entire virus, only the spike protein. Now once multiple or millions of spike proteins are actually created by the cells, then this initiates an immune response in the body. And once this immune response kicks in, it creates a lot of antibodies to go and destroy these spike proteins. So this is how the antibodies are generated to go against and fight against the spike protein which is being created by the cells itself. As of now, the cells itself are creating the spike protein, not the entire coronavirus. Now after that, these antibodies remain in the bloodstream and in the body itself, so that when a real virus is coming and attacking into the human body, in that case the antibodies are already ready to go and deal and tackle with this new coming virus. So as you can see here in this diagram, it's a very simplified version. First you have the coronavirus itself. On top of that, you can see the spike virus, the spike protein of that virus that is replicated into an RNA. And that RNA is then covered in a lipid layer and then further injected into the human body. Once inside the human body, it activates the cells or different cells in the body to create spike proteins within the body itself. Once the spike proteins or millions of spike proteins have been generated, it activates the immune response and thereby creating antibodies to fight against these spike proteins, and thereby making the body ready so that when the real virus attacks, it can destroy these, the real virus when it comes and attacks the body. So I hope you understood this. It is very clear to you. So that's all for today. Thank you.